Jake Morrison looked out the window of his transport ship as Nexus Prime came into view. The massive space station floated in the dark void between star systems, its metal surface gleaming under the light of distant suns. It was built to be neutral. Ground. A place where different alien species could meet without fear. Today, it would host the most important meeting in the galaxy's history. Jake was only 35 years old, but Earth had chosen him to represent all of humanity. He carried a leather briefcase that held what many believed was the galaxy's last hope for peace. Inside were the plans for a treaty that could end a war that had been going on for 300 years. The war was between two powerful groups. The Corvan Empire was made up of warrior aliens who believed in strength and conquest. They had gray skin like stone and stood 8 feet tall. Their ships were built for battle, covered in weapons and armor. The Zephyrian collective was very different. They were tall and thin with pale blue skin, and they could read minds. They believed in knowledge and working together, but they were just as deadly when threatened. For centuries, these two groups had fought across the galaxy. Planets had been destroyed. Millions had died. The smaller species lived in fear, never knowing when the war might reach them. Earth was new to galactic politics, having only made contact with aliens 50 years ago. But humans had something special. They could understand both sides and find solutions that others could not see. Captain Lisa Park walked into Jake's cabin as he studied his notes. She was his security chief, a tough woman in her early 40s, who had served in Earth's space forces for 20 years. Her job was to keep Jake safe, and she took it very seriously. "We dock in 2 hours," Lisa said. "I've been watching the sensor readings. There are more ships here than expected." Jake looked up from his papers. "Both sides brought extra delegates. That's good. It means they're taking this seriously. Or it means they're preparing for trouble," Lisa replied. She had short, dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The Corvan battlecruiser has enough firepower to destroy this entire station. The Zephyrian mine ship makes my skin crawl just looking at it." Jake smiled. "That's exactly why we're here, Lisa. Someone has to help them see past their fear and anger." Lisa was not convinced. In her experience, when different groups hated each other for 300 years, a peace treaty was not going to fix things overnight. But she had learned to trust Jake's judgment. He had a gift for bringing people together, even people who seemed to have nothing in common. The transport ship docked with Nexus Prime with a soft bump. Jake gathered his briefcase and straightened his dark blue suit. It was important to look professional when representing Earth. The airlock opened with a hiss, and they stepped onto the station. Nexus Prime was built like a giant wheel, spinning slowly to create artificial gravity. The central hub was where the important meetings took place. The outer ring had living quarters for delegates from dozens of different worlds. The hallways were wide enough for the largest alien species, and the air was kept at a temperature that most life forms could handle. As they walked toward the diplomatic section, they passed groups of aliens from across the galaxy. Jake saw the tall, insect-like Chithari with their clicking language. The small, furry Vulcani waddled past on 6 legs. 2 Andromedans floated by in their mechanical suits, since they could not breathe the station's atmosphere. "Look at them, all," Jake said quietly to Lisa. "Every one of these species has been affected by this war. They're here because they want peace as much as we do." They reached the main conference room, where the opening ceremony would take place. The room was huge, with a round table in the center. Different sections were designed for different types of alien biology. Some delegates needed to sit in water tanks, Others required special gravity fields. Jake found his assigned seat between the Corvan and Zephyrian delegations. It was not an accident that Earth had been placed there. As the newest member of the Galactic Council, humanity was seen as neutral. Neither side had old grudges against Earth. The Corvan delegation was led by General Voss, a massive warrior with scars across his gray face. His armor was black metal with red markings that showed his rank. Behind him sat 5 other Corvan officers, each one looking like they would rather be fighting than talking. On the other side sat Ambassador Lyra of the Zephyrian Collective. She was tall and graceful, with skin the color of ice and large silver eyes. Her people did not need to speak out loud. They could share thoughts directly. But for the sake of other species, they used words during formal meetings. "Ambassador Morrison," General Voss said in his deep, rumbling voice, "I hope Earth's proposal is worth our time. The Corvan Empire has little patience for empty words." Ambassador Lyra turned her silver eyes toward Jake. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried clearly across the room. "The Collective is willing to listen, but we have heard many promises of peace before. Actions matter more than words." Jake stood up and opened his briefcase. He pulled out a thick document bound in blue earth leather. "What I have here is not just words," he said. "It's a plan that addresses the real reasons why your peoples have been fighting. It offers something that neither side has been willing to consider before." Around the table, delegates from 30 different worlds leaned forward. Some had traveled for months to be here. Others had risked their lives crossing through war zones. Everyone wanted to know what Earth's young ambassador had brought them. "The plan is simple," Jake continued. "Instead of fighting over territory and resources, we create shared zones where both Corvans and Zephyrians work together. Each side contributes what they do best. Corvan strength and Zephyrian knowledge combined to build something new," General Voss snorted. "Work with mind readers? Impossible." "Sharing our thoughts with warriors who solve problems with weapons," Ambassador Lyra said. "Equally difficult," Jake smiled. "Difficult, yes, but not impossible. Humans have learned to work with both your peoples. We've served alongside Corvan soldiers and studied with Zephyrian scientists. If we can build trust with both sides, then both sides can learn to trust each other." The room fell silent. Jake could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. 300 years of war had created deep wounds that would not heal easily. But he believed that healing could begin here, in this room, with the right words and the right plan. He looked around the table at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Some showed hope. Others showed doubt. All of them showed the weariness that came from too many years of conflict. "Let me show you how this can work," Jake said, opening the treaty document. "Let me show you how we can build a future where your children don't have to fight the same war you've been fighting." Outside the conference room, Lisa Park watched through the security monitors. Everything looked normal, but something felt wrong. She had learned to trust her instincts during 20 years of military service. Her instincts were telling her that not everyone on this station wanted peace to succeed. The morning alarm in Jake Morrison's quarters never went off. Lisa Park waited outside the conference room for 30 minutes before she realized something was wrong. Jake was never late for anything, especially not for the second day of peace. Talks. She walked quickly through the curved hallways of Nexus Prime toward the living quarters section. Her hand rested on the energy weapon at her side. 20 years of military training had taught her to prepare for the worst. Jake's door was locked from the inside. Lisa pressed her hand against the scanner, using her security override codes. The door slid open with a soft hiss. The room was dark and quiet. "Jake?" she called out. No answer. She turned on the lights and saw him immediately. Jake Morrison lay on the floor beside his bed, still wearing the clothes from the night before. His face was peaceful, as if he had simply gone to sleep. But his skin had turned a pale blue color that Lisa had never seen before. Lisa knelt beside him and checked for a pulse, even though she already knew what she would find. Jake was dead. His body was still warm, which meant he had died recently, probably during the night. She looked around the room for signs of a struggle. Everything was neat and orderly. Jake's briefcase sat on the desk, still locked. His clothes were folded on a chair. There were no broken items, no signs that anyone had fought. Whoever killed Jake had done it quietly and cleanly. Lisa activated her communication device. "This is Captain Park. I need medical and security teams in Ambassador Morrison's quarters immediately. We have a code red situation. Within minutes..." The room filled with people. Dr. Amanda Gray, the station's chief medical officer, arrived with her scanning equipment. Commander Steve Walsh from station security brought a team of investigators. News of Jake's death spread quickly through Nexus Prime. Dr. Gray ran her medical scanner over Jake's body. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair who had seen many strange things during her time working with different alien species, but the readings on her scanner made her frown. "This is unusual," she said. "His vital organs shut down completely, but there are no wounds or signs of violence. The blue color of his skin suggests some kind of poisoning, but I've never seen anything like this before." Commander Walsh was examining the room with his security team. He found no evidence that anyone had forced their way inside. The door lock showed that Jake had sealed the room from the inside before going to bed. "How did the killer get in and out?" Walsh asked. Lisa was thinking the same thing. She walked around the room, looking at every surface. Then she noticed something small on the floor near Jake's bed. It was a tiny crystal, no bigger than a grain of sand. She picked it up carefully with a pair of medical tools. "Doctor, can you analyze this?" Lisa asked. Dr. Gray took the crystal and put it under her microscope. After a few minutes, she looked up with surprise on her face. "This is a Corvin poison. Crystal! It dissolves in contact with human skin and releases a toxin that stops the heart within hours. But Captain Park, this is a military-grade weapon. Only high-ranking Corvin officers would have access to it." The news hit the conference room like a bomb. General Voss and his delegation were in the middle of reviewing Earth's peace proposal when Commander Walsh arrived with security guards. "General Voss," Walsh said formally, "you and your delegation are under investigation for the murder of Ambassador Jake Morrison." The general stood up slowly. At 8 feet tall and covered in battle armor, he was an intimidating sight. His gray face showed anger, but also something else. Confusion. "What are you saying?" Voss growled. "The human is dead? He was poisoned with a Corvin military weapon," Walsh replied. "Only your people have access to such things." The other Corvin officers reached for their weapons, but General Voss raised his hand to stop them. "We did not kill the human ambassador," he said. "The Corvin Empire does not murder diplomats. We fight our enemies in open battle, not with poison in the dark." Ambassador Lyra of the Zephyrian Collective had been listening to the exchange. Her silver eyes showed sadness as she processed the news. "If Ambassador Morrison is truly dead, then hope for peace dies with him," she said softly. "The Corvins have shown their true nature," said another Zephyrian delegate. "They speak of peace while carrying murder weapons. We brought no poison." General Voss shouted. "Search our quarters if you must. You will find nothing." The argument grew louder as more delegates learned about Jake's death. Species that had been talking about peace just hours before now looked at each other with suspicion and fear. The careful trust that Jake had been building collapsed in minutes. Lisa Park watched from the back of the room as everything fell apart. She had seen political situations go bad before, but never this quickly. Without Jake to guide the talks, the old hatred between Corvins and Zephyrians came flooding back. "This station is no longer safe," announced the delegate from the Andromedan Union. "If Earth's ambassador can be murdered in his locked room, none of us are secure." One by one, the smaller species began to leave. They had come to Nexus Prime, hoping for an end to the war, but now they were afraid of being caught in the middle when the fighting started again. Commander Walsh tried to maintain order. "Please, everyone stay calm. We are investigating this crime. Justice will be done." But it was too late. The Zephyrian delegation was already packing their things. Ambassador Lyra spoke to the assembly one last time before leaving. "The collective came here in good faith," she said. "We were willing to trust Earth's wisdom and consider a new path. But the Corvin Empire has made their choice. They prefer murder to peace." General Voss stood up, his massive frame towering over the conference table. "The Corvin Empire will not be blamed for a crime we did not commit. If you want war, then war you shall have. Within 6 hours of Jake's death, both major delegations had left Nexus Prime. Emergency messages were sent to fleet commanders across the galaxy. Ships that had been standing down for the peace talks began to power up their weapons again. Lisa Park stood in the empty conference room, looking at the abandoned peace treaty that Jake had worked so hard to create. The leather-bound document lay open on the table, its pages filled with hope for a better future. Now it was just paper and ink. Dr. Gray found Lisa there an hour later. "Captain, I've completed my analysis of the poison. You need to see this." They went to the medical bay, where Jake's body lay covered by a white sheet. Dr. Gray pulled up her test results on a computer screen. "The poison crystal is definitely Corvin in origin," she said. "But there's something strange about it. The molecular structure has been modified. This isn't a standard military weapon. Someone changed it, made it more deadly." "Who would have the knowledge to do that?" Lisa asked. "Very few people. You would need advanced chemistry knowledge and access to both Corvin and off-world technology. This was not a simple assassination. Someone planned this very carefully." Lisa stared at the test results. If Dr. Gray was right, then Jake's murder was more complicated than it appeared. Someone had wanted it to look like the Corvins did it, but they had also wanted to make sure Jake died. "Doctor, I need you to run more tests. Check for any other alien technology or substances. I have a feeling this poison crystal is just the beginning." As Lisa left the medical bay, she could see through the station windows that ships were already leaving the area. The galaxy was preparing for war again. Jake Morrison's dream of peace was dead, and millions of beings would soon follow him into the grave. But Lisa Park was not ready to give up. Jake had believed that truth and justice could overcome hatred and fear. Someone had murdered him to prevent peace, and she was going to find out who. Even if it meant standing against the entire galaxy, she would get justice for Jake Morrison. The war that was about to begin would be the largest in galactic history. But it would also hide the investigation that might be the galaxy's only hope for real peace. Detective Ryan Cole arrived at Nexus Prime 3 days after Jake Morrison's murder. He came on a fast Earth ship that had traveled through dangerous space to reach the neutral station. Ryan was 42 years old, with brown hair and tired eyes, that had seen too many crime scenes. He worked for Earth's Special Investigations Division, which handled the most difficult cases across human space. Lisa Park met him at the docking bay. She had not slept much since finding Jake's body, and it showed in her face. Around them, the station felt almost empty. Most of the alien delegates had gone home, leaving only a few security teams and maintenance workers. "Captain Park," Ryan said as he stepped off his ship, "I'm sorry for your loss. Ambassador Morrison was a good man." "He was the best," Lisa replied, "and someone murdered him to stop the peace talks. I need your help to find out who." They walked through the quiet hallways toward the crime scene. Ryan carried a large case filled with investigation tools that were not available on the station. He had worked on murder cases involving aliens before, but never one with such high stakes. "Tell me what you've found so far," Ryan said. Lisa explained about the poison crystal and Dr. Gray's analysis. She showed him the security recordings from the hallways around Jake's quarters. They reviewed the list of everyone who had been on the station during the night Jake died. "The crystal definitely came from Corvin military supplies," Lisa said. "But Dr. Gray thinks someone modified it, made it stronger and faster acting." Ryan examined the tiny crystal under his portable microscope. He had seen Corvin weapons before during his time investigating crimes in border systems. This one looked different. "The modification work is very advanced," he said. "Whoever did this understands both Corvin chemistry and human biology. That's not a common combination." They went to Jake's quarters, which had been sealed since the murder. Ryan put on special gloves and began examining every surface with his equipment. He found traces of alien DNA on the door handle, but they were too degraded to identify the species. "Someone was very careful," Ryan said. "But no one is perfect. There are always clues if you know how to look." He used a chemical scanner on the air filtration system. Most people did not realize that alien species left behind microscopic particles when they breathed. Different species had different chemical signatures. "Interesting," Ryan said, looking at his readings. "I'm detecting traces of Zephyrian biomarkers in the air system, but also something else, something I don't recognize." Lisa frowned. "Zephyrians were in this room? But why would they kill Jake? The peace treaty would have benefited them as much as anyone." "Maybe they didn't kill him," Ryan said. "Maybe they were here investigating just like we are. They spent the rest of the day gathering evidence and interviewing the few people still on the station. Commander Walsh showed them the security footage from the night of the murder." The cameras in the hallway outside Jake's room had been working normally, but they showed no one entering or leaving his quarters after he went to bed. "How is that possible?" Lisa asked. Ryan studied the footage carefully. He had investigated cases where killers used advanced technology to avoid detection. There are ways to fool security cameras. Some species have natural camouflage abilities. Others use energy fields that bend light. Dr. Gray joined them in the security office with new test results. "I've been analyzing the poison crystal more carefully," she said. "The modifications weren't just to make it more deadly. Someone added a time delay component. The poison didn't activate until exactly 4 hours after contact with human skin." "A time delay gives the killer an alibi," Ryan said. "They could be somewhere else when the victim dies." "But it also tells us something about the killer," Lisa added. "They knew Jake's schedule. They knew exactly when he would go to bed and when the poison needed to work." Ryan was beginning to see a pattern. This wasn't a crime of anger or revenge. Someone planned this murder very carefully. They wanted Jake dead, but they also wanted it to look like the Corvins did it. They reviewed the guest list from the peace conference. Over 200 beings from 30 different species had been on the station. Any one of them could have been the killer, but most had left within hours of Jake's death. "We need to look at who stayed," Ryan said, "and who had access to both Corvin weapons and Zephyrian technology." Lisa pulled up the records of remaining delegates. Most were from smaller species that wanted to avoid the coming war, but one group caught Ryan's attention. "The Silicate Consortium," he said, reading from the list. "I've heard that name before. They're traders and merchants, but they operate in the shadows. What were they doing at a peace conference?" Lisa checked the diplomatic records. "They were listed as observers. They didn't participate in the talks, but they had permission to be here." Ryan had worked on cases involving the Silicate Consortium before. They were silicon-based life forms that looked like living crystals. They were very intelligent and had technology that most other species did not understand. They also had a reputation for being interested only in profit. "Where are the consortium representatives now?" Ryan asked. "Still on the station?" "Commander," Walsh said. "They claim their ship is having engine problems and they can't leave yet." Ryan and Lisa exchanged looks. In his experience, when suspects had convenient excuses for staying near a crime scene, they were usually worth investigating. They went to the section of the station where the consortium delegates were staying. The hallways here felt different, colder, and more sterile. The silicates needed different environmental conditions than most life forms. Through a window, they could see the consortium ship docked at the far end of the station. It was sleek and silver with no visible weapons or markings. It looked more like a piece of art than a spaceship. "Let's talk to them," Ryan said. The consortium delegates agreed to meet in one of the station's neutral conference rooms. There were 3 of them, each one looking like a walking crystal sculpture. They moved smoothly and spoke in voices that sounded like musical notes. "We are sorry to hear of Ambassador Morrison's death," said the one who called himself Prime Vector. "He was a wise being who understood the need for peace." "Where were you on the night he died?" Ryan asked directly. "In our quarters, maintaining our ship's systems remotely," Prime Vector replied. "We do not sleep as biological life forms do." Lisa noticed that the silicates did not seem surprised by the questions. Most innocent beings showed some emotion when questioned about murder. These 3 showed nothing. "Do you have any knowledge of Corvin military weapons?" Ryan asked. "We are traders," said another silicate called Data Stream. "We have encountered many technologies in our travels." "What about Zephyrian biochemistry?" Lisa asked. The 3 silicates looked at each other for a moment. Their crystal faces showed no expression, but Ryan sensed some kind of communication between them. "We have studied many forms of life," Prime Vector said finally. "Knowledge is valuable in our business." Ryan made notes as they talked. The silicates answered all their questions, but they gave no information that was not specifically asked for. In his experience, innocent people usually volunteered more details than guilty ones. After the interview, Ryan and Lisa walked back toward the security office. Around them, Nexus Prime felt like a ghost station. Most of the shops and restaurants had closed when the delegates left. Emergency lighting cast long shadows in the empty corridors. "What do you think?" Lisa asked. "I think we need to learn more about the Silicate Consortium," Ryan said. "And I think we need to do it quickly." They spent the evening researching everything they could find about the consortium. What they learned was troubling. The silicates had been involved in several conflicts over the past century. always as neutral traders who sold weapons and technology to both sides. "They profit from war," Lisa said, reading through the reports. "Peace would be bad for their business." "More than that," Ryan said. "Look at this pattern. Every time someone tries to negotiate peace between major powers, something goes wrong. Key negotiators die in accidents. Evidence of crimes gets destroyed. Ships carrying peace treaties disappear." Lisa felt a chill as she realized what Ryan was suggesting. "You think they've done this before?" "I think the Silicate Consortium has been manipulating galactic politics for decades," Ryan said. "And Jake Morrison was just their latest victim." Outside, the station windows, they could see the lights of warships in the distance. The Corvan and Zephyrian fleets were gathering for battle. Soon the war would begin again and millions would die. But now Ryan and Lisa knew who the real enemy was. The question was whether they could prove it before the galaxy tore itself apart. Ryan Cole spent the night digging through classified databases that few people knew existed. His clearance with Earth's Special Investigations Division gave him access to intelligence files from across human space. What he found in those files changed everything he thought he knew about galactic politics. The Silicate Consortium was much older and more powerful than anyone realized. They had been active in the galaxy for over 1,000 years, long before humans had left Earth. Their official records showed them as peaceful traders and technology developers, but the classified files told a different story. Lisa Park found Ryan in the computer center at dawn, surrounded by data screens and empty coffee cups. His eyes were red from reading, but his face showed the excitement of a detective who had found the key to solving a case. "Lisa, you need to see this," Ryan said. "The consortium isn't just profiting from wars, they're causing them." He showed her a timeline he had created from the intelligence files. For the past 3 centuries, every major conflict in the galaxy had followed the same pattern. Peace negotiations would begin between warring factions. Key diplomats would die in mysterious accidents. Evidence would point to one side or the other being responsible. The peace talks would collapse, and war would continue. "Look at the Andromedan Civil War 50 years ago," Ryan said, pointing to his screen. 2 sides were ready to make peace. Then the chief negotiator died from a rare disease that only affects Andromedans. Both sides blamed each other and the EA. War went on for another decade. Lisa studied the timeline. And the border conflicts with the Chithari Empire? Same thing. The human diplomat who was bringing the sides together died in a shuttle crash. The crash was blamed on Chithari sabotage, even though they denied it. The peace process ended, and humans and Chithari fought for 5 more years. The pattern was clear once Ryan pointed it out. In every case, the Silicate Consortium had been present as neutral observers or traders. They had always offered to provide technology or services to help with the peace process. And someone crucial to that process had always died at exactly the right moment to restart the conflict. But why? Lisa asked. What do they gain from keeping everyone at war? Ryan pulled up economic data that showed consortium profits over the past century. War is their business model, he said. They sell weapons to both sides. They provide ships and equipment. They offer loans to rebuild after battles. Every conflict makes them richer and more powerful. And peace would end their profits, Lisa realized. Worse than that, Ryan said. Peace would unite the galaxy against them. Think about it. If the Corvans and Zephyrians stopped fighting and started working together, they might notice that the consortium has been manipulating them for centuries. Dr. Gray arrived at the computer center with new analysis of the poison crystal that had killed Jake. She looked tired and worried. "I've made a disturbing discovery," she said. "The crystal wasn't just modified with Corvin and human knowledge. There are traces of silicate technology in the molecular structure." Ryan leaned forward. "What kind of technology?" "Nanomachines," Dr. Gray said. "Tiny robots that could control exactly when and how the poison was released. Only the silicates have that level of nanotechnology." Lisa felt anger building in her chest. "So they made the murder weapon, then planted it to frame the Corvins." "It gets worse," Ryan said. He had been reviewing station security logs all night. "I found something that Commander Walsh missed. The consortium ship never had engine problems. Their repair requests were fake. They stayed here to monitor the investigation and make sure it went the way they wanted." Dr. Gray sat down heavily in a chair. "If you're right about this, then we're not just dealing with murder. We're dealing with a conspiracy that spans the entire galaxy." Ryan nodded grimly. "And now they're about to achieve their biggest success yet. The war between the Corvins and Zephyrians will be the largest conflict in galactic history. The consortium stands to make more profit than ever before." Lisa was thinking about the bigger picture. "But there's something else. If they've been doing this for centuries, they must have agents everywhere. People in governments, military forces, intelligence services. They couldn't manipulate so many conflicts without inside help." Ryan had been thinking the same thing. "That's what worries me most. We don't know who we can trust. For all we know, someone in Earth's government is working for them." They were interrupted by an emergency communication from Commander Walsh. His face appeared on the screen and he looked panicked. "Captain Park, Detective Cole, you need to get to the docking bay immediately. The consortium ship is preparing to leave, and they're demanding that all evidence from the Morrison investigation be turned over to them." "On what authority?" Lisa asked. "They claim to have a warrant from the Galactic Trade Commission. They say the investigation is interfering with legitimate business operations." Ryan and Lisa looked at each other. If the consortium was using official channels to stop the investigation, it meant they had influence at the highest levels of galactic government. They ran through the station corridors toward the docking bay. Behind them, Dr. Gray gathered all the evidence they had collected. If the consortium was trying to confiscate everything, then they had found something important. At the docking bay, they found Commander Walsh arguing with Prime Vector and the other silicate delegates. Several station security officers stood nearby, looking confused and nervous. "The evidence cannot be released," Walsh was saying. "This is an active murder investigation." "The investigation is concluded," Prime Vector replied in his musical voice. "The Corvin Empire has been identified as responsible. The evidence must be properly processed through official channels." Lisa stepped forward. "The investigation is not concluded. We have new evidence that changes everything." Datastream turned toward her. "Captain Park, you have done your duty. But this matter now requires higher authority than a simple station. Security team." "What authority?" Ryan asked. "Who exactly do you work for?" The three silicates looked at each other again. Ryan was beginning to understand that they communicated through some kind of direct link that other species could not detect. "We work for peace and stability," Prime Vector said finally. "Sometimes that requires difficult decisions." "Like murdering diplomats?" Lisa asked. "Like preventing naive young species from interfering in matters they do not understand," Datastream replied. The mask was slipping. Ryan could see that the silicates were no longer pretending to be simple traders. Their real agenda was becoming clear. "How long have you been manipulating galactic politics?" Ryan asked. "We have been maintaining balance for over a millennium," Prime Vector said. Your species has existed in space for barely 50 years. You cannot comprehend the complexities involved. Balance? Lisa said angrily. You call endless war balance? We call it necessity, Datastream replied. United, the biological species would eventually turn against us. Divided, they remain manageable. Commander Walsh was recording everything they said, but Ryan suspected it would not matter. If the consortium had enough influence to issue warrants through the Galactic Trade Commission, they probably had enough power to make recordings disappear. You won't get away with this, Lisa said. We already have, Prime Vector replied. By the time your species understands what is happening, the galaxy will be in flames. The Corvan and Zephyrian fleets will destroy each other, along with anyone who gets in their way. The survivors will need our technology and resources to rebuild. We will be stronger than ever. The Silicates began walking toward their ship. Station security moved to stop them, but Commander Walsh held up his hand. Let them go, he said quietly. We don't have the authority to detain representatives of the Galactic Trade Commission. As the consortium ship undocked and flew away, Ryan watched through the viewing window. He felt like he was watching the future of the galaxy disappear into the darkness of space. What do we do now? Lisa asked. Ryan thought about everything they had learned. The consortium had centuries of experience at this game. They had agents throughout galactic society. They had official backing from powerful institutions. Going up against them would be like a single person trying to stop an avalanche. We fight, Ryan said. Even if we can't win, we fight. Jake Morrison believed in doing what was right, no matter how impossible it seemed. Lisa nodded. Then we need to get this information to Earth. If the consortium has been manipulating us for 50 years, our government needs to know. And we need to find allies, Ryan added. There have to be others who have figured out what's really going on. Other investigators, other diplomats who died for getting too close to the truth. Dr. Gray joined them at the viewing window. I've secured copies of all our evidence, she said. Hidden them where the consortium can't find them. Whatever happens next, the truth will survive. Outside, the first ships of the Corvan and Zephyrian fleets were beginning to arrive at the border systems. Soon, the shooting would start, and the galaxy would be at war again. But this time, a few people knew who the real enemy was. The question was whether they could expose the truth before it was too late to matter. Admiral Ben Tucker received the emergency transmission from Nexus Prime while he was reviewing fleet positions in his office on Earth's orbital defense station. The message from Detective Ryan Cole and Captain Lisa Park contained information that made him read it 3 times before he believed what he was seeing. Ben was 58 years old and had commanded Earth's space forces for the past decade. He had gray hair and deep lines around his eyes from years of making difficult decisions. He had fought in the border wars against the Chitauri and had negotiated truces with several smaller alien species. But he had never faced anything like this. The evidence was clear. The Silicate Consortium had murdered Jake Morrison and manipulated galactic politics for centuries. They were about to profit from the largest war in galactic history, while millions of beings died fighting each other instead of their real enemy. Ben walked to the command center of the defense station, where officers monitored space traffic around Earth and the nearby colonies. Through the large windows, he could see Earth floating below, blue and peaceful and unaware of the storm that was coming. Get me a secure connection to the president, Ben told his communications officer. President Karen Wells took the call from her office in Geneva. She was a small woman with silver hair and intelligent eyes who had led Earth's government for 6 years. She had been the one to choose Jake Morrison as Earth's ambassador to the peace talks. "Admiral Tucker," she said, when her face appeared on Ben's screen. "I assume this is about Ambassador Morrison's death. The news reports are saying that the Corvins killed him." "The news reports are wrong, Madam President," Ben said. "I'm sending you a classified file that will change how we see everything that's happening in this galaxy." President Wells reviewed the evidence while Ben waited. He watched her face change from confusion to anger to determination as she read about the consortium's centuries of manipulation. "If this is true," she said finally, "then we've been played for fools since the day we made contact with alien life." "It's true," Ben said. "And it gets worse. According to our intelligence analysis, the consortium has agents in governments across the galaxy, probably including our own." The president was quiet for a moment. In the background, Ben could hear the sounds of her staff working in the outer offices, unaware that their world had just changed. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" she asked. "We expose the truth," Ben said, "and we prepare for war. Not against the Corvins or Zephyrians, but against the real enemy." "How do we fight an enemy that's been planning this for 1,000 years? Ben had been thinking about that question since he read Ryan's report. "The same way humans have always fought against impossible odds. We refuse to give up, we use our creativity, and we make allies wherever we can find them." Within hours, President Wells had called an emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council. The room was deep underground, in Geneva, protected by layers of security and shielding. Around the table sat the leaders of Earth's military, intelligence, and diplomatic services. General Patricia Stone commanded Earth's ground forces. Director Mark Ellis ran the intelligence service that had trained Detective Ryan Cole. Ambassador Helen Carter was Earth's chief diplomat to the Galactic Council. Each of them read the evidence about the consortium with growing alarm. "How many of our allies can we trust?" General Stone asked. "We don't know," Director Ellis replied. "The consortium has had 50 years to place agents in human organizations. They could have people anywhere." Ambassador Carter was studying the timeline of galactic conflicts. "This explains so many things that never made sense before. Why peace? Negotiations always failed at the last moment. Why evidence always pointed to the wrong suspects? Why conflicts always escalated just when they should have been ending?" Admiral Tucker stood up and activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of fleets across the galaxy. Red dots showed Corvin forces. Blue dots showed Zephyrian ships. The two sides were moving toward each other like storms, preparing to collide. "We have maybe 48 hours before the shooting starts," Ben said. "Once that happens, everyone will be too busy fighting to listen to the truth about the consortium." "What assets do we have?" President Wells asked. Ben pulled up Earth's military strength on the display. It looked pitifully small compared to the major galactic powers. Earth had only been in space for 50 years, while other species had been building fleets for millennia. 12 heavy cruisers, 30 destroyers, and about 100 smaller ships, Ben said, plus our intelligence networks and diplomatic contacts, against an enemy that controls galactic trade and has agents everywhere, General Stone added grimly. "We have something else," Director Ellis said. "We have Detective Cole and Captain Park. They're the only ones who have seen all the evidence firsthand. And we have Dr. Gray's analysis of the murder weapon." Ambassador Carter was looking thoughtful. "There might be others who suspect the truth. Other investigators who have seen patterns but couldn't prove anything. Other diplomats who have wondered why peace always fails. How do we find them without alerting the consortium? Ben asked. Very carefully, Director Ellis replied. We use personal contacts, people we trust completely. We start with humans who are working in alien governments or military forces. President Wells made her decision. Admiral Tucker, I'm giving you command of this operation. Find allies, gather evidence, and expose the consortium before this war destroys the galaxy. And if we can't expose them in time? Ben asked. Then we fight, she said simply. Even if we're outnumbered 1,000 to 1, we fight, Ben began, assembling his team immediately. He chose officers he had served with for years, people whose loyalty he trusted absolutely. Commander Amy Davis became his second in command. She was 35 years old with red hair and a reputation for tactical brilliance that had earned her rapid promotion through the ranks. Amy, I need you to put together a special task force, Ben told her. Mixed human and alien crews if we can find aliens we can trust, fast ships with good communications equipment. What's our mission? Amy asked. To save the galaxy, Ben said, starting with finding out who we can count on and who might be working for the enemy. The task force came together quickly. Ben was surprised by how many humans were willing to volunteer for a mission they knew almost nothing about. Word had spread quietly through Earth's military that something big was happening. Something that involved avenging Jake Morrison's death. Lieutenant Commander Scott Mitchell brought his communications expertise. He had worked with alien technology for 10 years and knew how to tap into galactic information networks without being detected. Major Sarah Blake commanded a team of Special Forces soldiers who had trained to work alongside alien allies. But the most important addition to the team was Dr. Jennifer Murphy, a xenobiologist who had studied alien psychology for 20 years. She understood how different species thought and communicated, which would be crucial for building trust with potential allies. The biggest challenge will be identifying who we can trust, Dr. Murphy explained to the team. The consortium has had centuries to perfect the art of deception. Their agents will look and act like loyal citizens of whatever species they're pretending to be. Commander Davis was studying star charts, looking for the best places to make contact with potential allies. We need to find people who are already suspicious of the official story about Ambassador Morrison's death. Start with species that have lost diplomats or leaders under mysterious circumstances, Ben suggested. If the consortium has been doing this for centuries, there must be others who have noticed the pattern. The task force prepared to leave Earth within 36 hours of receiving their orders. Their ships were loaded with evidence about the consortium and communications equipment to contact allies across the galaxy. They also carried enough weapons to defend themselves because Ben suspected they would need them. As they prepared to depart, Ben received a final message from Detective Ryan Cole and Captain Park on Nexus Prime. The consortium ship had left the station, but there were signs that other consortium agents were moving into position throughout the galaxy. They're activating sleeper agents, Ryan reported. People who have been in place for years waiting for orders. Whatever they're planning, it's bigger than just profiting from this war. Ben shared the message with his team. Commander Davis frowned as she read it. If they're activating agents everywhere, they might be planning something beyond just letting the Corvins and Zephyrians fight, she said. Like what? Ben asked. Dr. Murphy had been thinking about the consortium's long-term strategy. What if the war is just the first step? What if they're planning to eliminate all the major biological species and take control of the galaxy themselves? The idea was terrifying, but it made sense. The consortium had been patient for 1,000 years, slowly building their power and influence. A galactic war would weaken every other species, leaving the silicates as the only organized force left, standing. Then we're not just trying to prevent a war, Ben realized. We're trying to prevent genocide on a galactic scale. The stakes had just gotten higher. But as Ben looked at his team of volunteers, he saw the same determination that had carried humanity from a single planet to the stars. They might be outnumbered, and Admiral Tucker's task force split into 3 groups as they entered the war zone between Corvin and Zephyrian space. Commander Amy Davis took the fastest ships toward the Andromedan systems, where intelligence reports suggested there might be allies willing to listen. Major Sarah Blake led a stealth mission toward consortium facilities in the Outer Rim. Tucker himself headed for the neutral worlds that were caught between the approaching fleets. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, Detective Ryan Cole and Captain Lisa Park had made a discovery that changed everything they thought they knew about the case. Dr. Gray had found hidden files in Jake Morrison's personal computer, files that had been protected by encryption that only activated after his death. Jake knew, Lisa said as she read through the files. He suspected the consortium from the beginning. The files contained Jake's private investigation into previous diplomatic failures. He had been researching the pattern of mysterious deaths and failed peace negotiations for months before coming to Nexus Prime. His notes showed that he had identified several potential consortium agents working in various galactic governments. "Look at this," Ryan said, pointing to one of Jake's files. He was planning to expose the consortium during the peace talks. That's why they had to kill him. Dr. Gray had been analyzing the computer files with her scientific equipment. There's something else. Jake Morrison had prepared a dead man's switch. If he didn't check in with Earth's intelligence services every 48 hours, certain information would be automatically transmitted to key people across the galaxy. "When was his last check-in?" Lisa asked. "The night before he died," Dr. Gray replied. "Which means the information should have been sent yesterday." Ryan felt a surge of hope. If Jake had managed to get evidence to the right people, then his death might not have been in vain. "Do we know who received the information?" Dr. Gray pulled up Jake's communication logs. It went to intelligence officers in 6 different governments, including Earth, but also to several journalists and academic researchers who study galactic politics. The consortium must know about this by now, Lisa realized. They'll be trying to silence anyone who received Jake's evidence. Ryan was already moving toward the communications center. "We need to contact Admiral Tucker and warn him. If the consortium is eliminating witnesses, his people could be walking into traps." But when they tried to send a message to Tucker's task force, they found that long-range communications from Nexus Prime had been jammed. Someone was blocking all signals going in or out of the station. "The consortium ship might have left," Dr. Gray said, "but they left something behind to keep us isolated." Lisa was checking the station's sensors. "There's a small ship hiding behind the station's main reactor. It's using some kind of stealth technology, but our close-range scanners can detect it." Ryan studied the sensor readings. The ship was small but sophisticated, designed for surveillance and electronic warfare rather than combat. "They're watching us and making sure we can't communicate with the outside galaxy." "Then we need to deal with that ship," Lisa said. Commander Walsh joined them in the security center. His face was grim as he reviewed the situation. "I have 6 security officers and 2 maintenance shuttles. Not exactly a military force." "It doesn't matter," Ryan said. "We can't let the consortium keep us silent while their agents eliminate witnesses across the galaxy. They spent an hour planning their approach. The consortium ship was positioned where the station's weapons could not target it, but it was vulnerable to a small craft that could maneuver around the reactor's radiation. Fields, Lisa volunteered to pilot one of the maintenance shuttles. She had been trained in combat flying during her military service, and she knew the station's layout better than anyone. Ryan insisted on going with her, despite having no experience in space combat. "You're an investigator, not a pilot," Lisa argued. "And you're a security officer, not a commando," Ryan replied. "But we're all we've got. Besides, someone needs to operate the communications equipment if we manage to disable their jamming." Dr. Gray and Commander Walsh stayed on the station to monitor the mission and prepare the evidence files for immediate transmission once communications were restored. The maintenance shuttle was not designed for combat. It had basic maneuvering, thrusters, a small cargo bay, and minimal shielding. But it also had tools that could be adapted for other purposes, including cutting lasers and magnetic clamps. Lisa guided the shuttle around the outer edge of Nexus Prime, staying close to the station's hull to avoid detection. The consortium ship was hiding in the shadow of the main reactor, invisible to most sensors but creating a slight distortion in the background radiation. "There," Ryan said, pointing to his scanner readings. 200 meters behind the thermal exhaust port. The consortium ship was sleek and black, about the size of a large fighter craft. It had no visible weapons, but Ryan could see antenna arrays and sensor dishes that marked it as a surveillance vessel. "How do we disable it without destroying it?" Lisa asked. "If we kill the crew, we'll never get information about other consortium operations." Ryan was studying the ship's design through the shuttle's magnification scope. Silicates don't use the same life support systems as biological species, but they need power for their electronic consciousness. If we can overload their power grid, it should disable them without causing permanent damage. Lisa maneuvered the shuttle closer, using the reactor's radiation to mask their approach. When they were within 50 meters, she activated the cutting laser and aimed it at the consortium ship's main power coupling. The laser beam struck the ship's hull and began burning through the armor plating. Immediately, the consortium vessel began to move, trying to escape the unexpected attack. But it had been designed for stealth, not speed, and the maintenance shuttle was surprisingly agile in close quarters. "They're trying to signal for help," Ryan reported, watching his communication scanner. "But the reactor interference is blocking their transmissions." Lisa kept the laser focused on the power coupling until she saw sparks erupting from the consortium ship's hull. The vessel shuddered and went dark, drifting powerless in the shadow of the reactor. "Got them," Lisa said, "but we need to move fast. They probably have backup power systems." They used the shuttle's magnetic clamps to attach to the consortium ship's hull. Ryan activated the airlock cutter and burned through the outer wall of what appeared to be the ship's control center. Inside, they found 3 silicate beings in emergency stasis. The power loss had forced them into a hibernation state to preserve their electronic consciousness. Their crystal bodies were dim and motionless, but Ryan could see that they were still alive. Their computer systems are still active on backup. "Power," Ryan said, examining the ship's control panels. "I might be able to download their communication logs before they wake up." Lisa kept watch while Ryan connected his portable computer to the consortium ship's databanks. The files he found were encrypted, but Jake Morrison's investigation had included notes about silicate computer systems. "I'm in," Ryan said after several tense minutes. "And what I'm seeing is terrifying." The communication logs showed messages. between consortium agents across the galaxy. The current war was just the beginning of what they called the final solution. Once the major biological species had weakened each other through fighting, the consortium planned to activate hidden weapon systems that would destroy entire star systems. They're planning to commit genocide, Ryan said, downloading as much data as possible. Not just the Corvins and Zephyrians, but every biological species in the galaxy. Lisa was monitoring the power levels in the consortium ship. Their backup systems are recharging. We need to leave now. They returned to their shuttle just as the first silicate began to emerge from stasis. Lisa fired the thrusters and guided them back to Nexus Prime as quickly as possible. Commander Walsh was waiting for them in the docking bay. "Communications are restored," he said. "Whatever you did to that ship disabled their jamming." Ryan ran to the communication center and began transmitting everything they had learned to Admiral Tucker's task force. But when he tried to reach Tucker directly, he received a disturbing response. "Admiral Tucker's ship is not responding," the communication officer reported. "Neither are Commander Davis or Major Blake. Something's wrong." Dr. Gray joined them in the communication center. "I've been monitoring galactic news feeds," she said. "There are reports of attacks on intelligence facilities across human space. Someone is systematically eliminating people who might have received Jake Morrison's evidence." Ryan felt a chill as he realized what was happening. The consortium wasn't just trying to start a war between the Corvins and Zephyrians. They were using the chaos to eliminate anyone who might expose their plan for galactic domination. "We need to assume that Tucker's people have been compromised," Lisa said. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Ryan looked at the data they had downloaded from the consortium ship. It contained the locations of hidden weapon systems, the identities of consortium agents, and the timeline for their final solution. "We do what Jake Morrison would have done," Ryan said. "We make sure the truth gets out no matter what it costs us." Lisa nodded. "Even if we're the only ones left to tell it." Admiral Ben Tucker's ship, the Earth cruiser Defiance, drifted powerless in space near the Andromedan border. The consortium ambush had been perfectly planned. What looked like a distress signal from a damaged freighter had led Tucker's small fleet into a trap where hidden weapons platforms disabled their engines and communications. Tucker sat in his command chair, watching his crew work frantically to restore power while consortium ships surrounded them. Commander Amy Davis had been captured when her task force was ambushed in a different system. Major Sarah Blake and her team were missing, their last transmission coming from a supposedly abandoned consortium facility. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Scott Mitchell from the communications station. "I'm picking up a transmission from Nexus Prime. It's Detective Cole." The message was short but urgent. Ryan Cole's voice crackled through the damaged speakers. "Admiral, the consortium is implementing something called the final solution. They have hidden weapons capable of destroying star systems. They're planning to eliminate all biological life in the galaxy once the current war weakens us enough." Tucker felt his blood turn cold. He had suspected the consortium was more dangerous than they appeared. But this was beyond anything he had imagined. "Can we respond to that message?" "Negative." "Sir, our communications are still down." Tucker looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were trapped, outnumbered, and cut off from Earth. But they were also the only ones who knew the full scope of the consortium's plan. "Mitchell, how long until we have partial power restored?" "Another 20 minutes, sir. But the consortium ships will probably board us before then." Tucker made a decision that would have seemed impossible to any rational military commander. When we get power back, I want you to route everything to the communications array. Engines, weapons, life support. Everything. Sir, that will leave us defenseless. We're already defenseless, Tucker replied. But we might still be able to warn the galaxy. 23 minutes later, the Defiance came back to life just long enough to broadcast a message that reached every ship, station, and inhabited planet in the known galaxy. Tucker's voice carried across the void as consortium boarding pods attached to his ship's hull. This is Admiral Ben Tucker of Earth Defense Command. The Silicate Consortium has been manipulating galactic politics for over 1,000 years. They murdered Ambassador Jake Morrison to prevent peace. They are planning to eliminate all biological life in the galaxy using hidden weapons systems. The current war is a trap designed to weaken us before they strike. Every species must unite against this threat, or we will all die. The transmission lasted only 90 seconds before the consortium boarding parties reached the bridge. But those 90 seconds changed everything. On Nexus Prime, Detective Ryan Cole and Captain Lisa Park watched as the galactic communication networks exploded with activity. Tucker's message was being repeated, translated, and analyzed by governments across the galaxy. "It's working," Lisa said, monitoring the transmissions. "Ships are breaking off from combat to investigate Tucker's claims." But the consortium was not idle. Within hours of Tucker's broadcast, they activated sleeper agents in governments throughout the galaxy. False evidence appeared showing that Tucker's message was Earth propaganda designed to unite other species against humanity. Counter-broadcasts claimed that humans were the real threat to galactic peace. Ryan watched the information war unfold with growing concern. They're good at this. They've had centuries to perfect their propaganda techniques. Dr. Gray joined them in the communications center with disturbing news. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures in 12 different star systems. Something big is powering up." Lisa checked the sensor readings. Those are the locations Ryan downloaded from the consortium ship, the hidden weapon systems. They're not waiting for the war to weaken us, Ryan realized. Tucker's broadcast forced them to accelerate their timeline. Commander Walsh arrived with his remaining security officers. "We're receiving reports of consortium ships moving toward populated systems across the galaxy. They're not hiding anymore." The next 6 hours were a nightmare of desperate activity. From their isolated position on Nexus Prime, Ryan and Lisa coordinated with the few remaining Earth intelligence operatives who had survived the consortium purges. They shared everything they knew about the hidden weapons and the locations of consortium facilities. But for every piece of information they transmitted, the consortium countered with disinformation. For every ally they contacted, 3 more were eliminated by consortium agents. The galaxy was tearing itself apart with confusion and mistrust, just as the real enemy prepared to strike. Then something unexpected happened. Commander Amy Davis's voice came through on an emergency frequency that should have been impossible to access. "This is Commander Davis broadcasting from inside a consortium prison facility. I have Admiral Tucker and 43 other Earth personnel with me. We've gathered intelligence on the consortium's final solution, and we're transmitting everything we know." Ryan almost shouted with relief. "Amy, how did you escape?" "We didn't escape," Davis replied. "We're still prisoners, but we found allies you won't believe." The transmission that followed contained the most important intelligence discovery in galactic history. Commander Davis had been captured along with prisoners from dozens of other species, Corvins, Zephyrians, Andromedans, Chithari, and many others. All of them had been investigating the same pattern of suspicious deaths and failed peace negotiations. "We've been comparing notes," Davis continued. "Every species has lost key people to mysterious accidents over the past century. Diplomats, scientists, military leaders, anyone who might have figured out what the consortium was doing. But the most shocking revelation came from an unexpected source. General Voss of the Corvan Empire and Ambassador Lyra of the Zephyrian Collective were both prisoners in the same facility. They had been captured when they tried to investigate who had really killed Jake Morrison. The Corvans and Zephyrians have been fighting each other for 300 years, Davis reported. But it turns out they both suspected the consortium was manipulating them. They just couldn't prove it." Admiral Tucker's voice came through the transmission, weak but determined. "The prisoners here represent every major species in the galaxy. If we can get this intelligence to our governments, we can unite against the real enemy." Ryan was already working on that problem. "Amy, can you give us the location of your prison facility?" "Negative. The consortium is monitoring this transmission, but we can tell you something else. The hidden weapons are powered by a central control system. If that system can be destroyed, all the weapons will shut down." Lisa leaned forward. "Where is the control system?" "In the consortium's primary facility in the Void Nebula," Tucker replied. "It's heavily defended, but it's also their single point of failure." The transmission ended abruptly as consortium jamming cut off the signal, but the damage was done. Every government that received the broadcast now knew that their prisoners and missing personnel were alive and had valuable intelligence about the consortium threat. More importantly, the broadcast had included technical data about the hidden weapons and their control systems. For the first time since Jake Morrison's death, the galaxy had hope. Dr. Gray was analyzing the technical data when she made another crucial discovery. The consortium's weapons are based on ancient technology that's thousands of years old, but they have a weakness. The power grid that controls them can be overloaded by a specific type of electromagnetic pulse. "Do we have the ability to generate that kind of pulse?" Ryan asked. "Earth does," Dr. Gray replied. "The orbital defense platforms around Earth were designed to generate electromagnetic fields for deflecting asteroids. With some modifications, they could produce the pulse needed to shut down the consortium weapons." Lisa was already planning the mission. "Someone needs to get to Earth and coordinate the attack on the control facility. The timing has to be perfect. The electromagnetic pulse and the assault on the Void Nebula facility must happen simultaneously." Ryan knew what she was thinking. "You're volunteering to go to Earth." "Someone has to. And I'm the best pilot on this station." Dr. Gray spoke up. "I'm going with her. Earth scientists will need my research data to modify the defense platforms correctly." Commander Walsh joined the conversation. "What about the rest of us?" Ryan looked around at the small group of people who had become humanity's last hope. "We stay here and keep transmitting everything we know. If the consortium attack fails, someone needs to keep fighting." As Lisa and Dr. Gray prepared to leave Nexus Prime in the fastest ship available, Ryan received one final transmission from Admiral Tucker. "Detective Cole, if you're receiving this, know that everyone here is proud to serve with Earth's finest. We're going to try to escape and assault the Void Nebula facility from the inside. If we don't make it, tell our families that we died fighting for the future of all biological life in the galaxy." Ryan sat alone in the communications center as Lisa's ship disappeared into hyperspace. Around him, Nexus Prime felt like the loneliest place in the universe. But he knew that across the galaxy, Beings from dozens of species were preparing for the most important battle in galactic history. Captain Lisa Park's ship arrived at Earth just as the consortium's hidden weapons began charging in 12 star systems across the galaxy. The energy signatures were visible even from light years away, massive constructs that had been hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae for centuries, now revealing themselves for the final attack. Earth's orbital defense platforms were already being modified according to Dr. Gray's specifications. Engineers worked around the clock to convert asteroid deflection systems into the most powerful electromagnetic pulse generators ever built. President Wells had mobilized every available resource for humanity's desperate gambit. "We get one shot at this," Lisa told the assembled military commanders in Earth's war room. "If the timing is off by even a few seconds, the consortium weapons will destroy every inhabited system in the galaxy." General Stone was coordinating the ground-based preparations. "Our intelligence networks report that Corvin and Zephyrian fleets are moving toward the Void Nebula. General Voss and Ambassador Lyra must have convinced their people that the real enemy is the consortium." Director Ellis had more sobering news. "We're also detecting massive consortium ship movements. They're not just activating their hidden weapons, they're preparing to occupy the systems they don't destroy." Dr. Gray worked with Earth's top scientists to fine-tune the electromagnetic pulse parameters. "The pulse has to be precise," she explained to the technical teams. "Too weak, and it won't shut down their weapons. Too strong, and it could damage our own systems." Meanwhile, in the Void Nebula, Admiral Tucker and Commander Davis led a desperate assault on the consortium's primary facility. The prison break had been successful, freeing over 200 captured personnel from 30 different species. Now they were inside the most heavily defended location in consortium space. "The central control room is 3 levels down," Davis reported over the communication link, "but it's protected by automated defense systems that we can't disable." General Voss, fighting alongside humans for the first time in his life, proved that Corvin's strength was more than just legend. His massive fists could punch through metal walls, and his battle armor shrugged off energy weapons that would have killed other beings. "Corvin warriors do not retreat from defense systems," he growled, leading a charge down a corridor filled with laser turrets. Ambassador Lyra used her telepathic abilities to coordinate the mixed-species assault team with perfect efficiency. She could sense the location of consortium defenders and relay tactical information faster than any communication system. "The silicates are retreating to the lower levels," she reported. "They're trying to activate the weapons manually." Back on Earth, Lisa stood in the command center as countdown timers showed the synchronized attack approaching. Around the globe, electromagnetic pulse generators powered up to levels that made the air itself crackle with energy. 60 seconds. "To pulse activation," announced the chief engineer. Lisa opened a communication channel to every ship and station that was participating in the attack. "This is for Jake Morrison," she said simply. "This is for everyone who died because the consortium wanted to keep us fighting each other instead of working together." In the Void Nebula, Tucker's assault team reached the central control room, just as the consortium prepared to fire their hidden weapons. The room was vast and filled with crystalline structures that hummed with power. Dozens of silicate technicians worked frantically at control panels. 30 seconds to pulse," Davis reported, checking her chronometer. Tucker looked around at the beings fighting beside him. Humans, Corvins, Zephyrians, Andromedans, and others. Species that had been enemies just days before, now united against their common threat. "Whatever happens next," he said, "we proved that we're stronger together than apart." The electromagnetic pulse fired from Earth's orbital platforms at exactly the moment Tucker's team destroyed the central control systems. The effect was visible across the galaxy as massive energy discharges lit up the void between stars. For a moment, it seemed like the plan had failed. The hidden weapons continued charging, their energy signatures growing stronger. Then, one by one, they began to shut down as the electromagnetic pulse disrupted their power grids. "It's working!" Dr. Gray shouted from the monitoring station. "The weapons are going offline, but the victory came at a cost." The consortium facility in the Void Nebula exploded as its power systems overloaded. Tucker, Davis, and their mixed-species team were caught in the blast that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Lisa felt tears in her eyes as she watched the explosion through the long-range sensors. Did anyone get out? For long minutes, there was only silence from the Void Nebula. Then, weakly, Admiral Tucker's voice came through the static. "This is Tucker. We're alive, but barely. The facility is destroyed, and the consortium's central command is eliminated." The celebrations that followed lasted for days. Across the galaxy, beings who had been preparing for war instead found themselves working together to capture consortium agents and secure their hidden facilities. Detective Ryan Cole, still coordinating from Nexus Prime, became the center of the largest criminal investigation in galactic history. The evidence he and Lisa had gathered became the foundation for trials that would reshape galactic law. "We've identified over 3,000 consortium agents embedded in governments across the galaxy," Ryan reported to the reformed Galactic Council 6 months later. The manipulation went deeper than anyone imagined. But the most important change was not in the capture of criminals. It was in the new spirit of cooperation that Jake Morrison's death had ultimately made possible. General Voss and Ambassador Lyra, who had fought side by side in the consortium facility, became the first joint Corvin-Zephyrian ambassadors to the Galactic Council. Their peoples, who had been enemies for 3 centuries, began working together on projects that neither could have accomplished alone.